hospitals constructed, and which includes Chipili in that number. And if he cared to look at the plan, the 8th National Development Plan, it's indicated there. Thank you.
I think you've heard you can dance now. The Honorable Member for Petauke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the good people of Petauke to ask a follow-up question on behalf of the good people of Chipiri. The Minister of Health, the people of Chipiri, they want to know when exactly. Is it this year or next year or 2026 or when? Thank you, Minister of Health.
The Honorable Minister of Health, though you already answered that question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Member of Parliament for Petauke must have an issue. And maybe let me just use this opportunity. I know that yesterday, Mr. Speaker, when he kept disturbing my line of thought 3 times, he was calling on a point of order. I got irritated and I said, I said, where is Doris Leah? But I just want to say that I retract that, because he felt very offended. He felt I was maybe undermining his authority. And but I take him like my young brother, so I normally say these things to him. So, but I think he didn't take it well, so I retract the comments. Now, currently we have infrastructure countrywide that are incomplete. And I think that when we're reading our budget for this year, we did indicate that government's intention, mainly for this year, is to complete the uncompleted projects. When we finish, if we finish next year, for example, end of next year or mid of next year, then we'll start, looking at the 30. And what I need to do, Mr. Speaker, is as a ministry, we have agreed that we will do a strategic implementation plan so that members of parliament can see where they stand, so that they can plan also for in the manner they speak to their communities. But the fact still remains that the 30, Mr. Speaker, these are newly established districts. There are about 30 of them. And if you look in the 8th National Development Plan, and even in our current plan, strategic plan for 2022 to 2026, we have indicated that the 30 districts will be catered for. Now, one of the things we're also looking at is we want to change the model of implementation. Because if you look at some of the districts, for example, the 36 outstanding districts, those districts, the construction of those districts must have started in 2013. And from 2013 up to now, they're still being constructed. So we want to change the model. We'd rather have a situation where we don't construct using phases. We start a hospital in a particular district, we move to another district, we start, we finish, then littering structures all over and finished. We have seen that it's not a good idea, and the quality of the infrastructure begins to deteriorate. So we'll come back here and inform the members in a much more clearer way. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chifuvu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the people of Chifuvu an opportunity. Honorable Minister, since you have stated that the district hospitals will be constructed in other districts where they have not yet started constructing the districts after finishing up other uncompleted district hospitals, do you have a time frame in which these health posts and districts that are uncompleted will be completed, which you can furnish the House with, so that we can know when the construction of the new ones will commence. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know that sometimes we say things on the floor, and depending on what one says, one begins to look at other things that are happening around other districts. So there are some districts, for example, which are under construction, and completion is at different times. And so sometimes it gets confusing to some of the colleagues when they know that there's a hospital, for example, that is being constructed in Mfuwe Mambwe district, and they'll be handing over, I think, this month or next month, and then other districts that are at different stages. So I can't, off the cuff, give a list. That would have to require the honorable member to file in another question so that I can be specific. Suffice to say that as we go, there's goodwill, and even with some of the trips that the president is making, there's also goodwill in the Ministry of Health, and we are hoping that along the way, within the strategic plan period, that's 2022 to 2026, we know that there are plans for some support, and in some instances, we are only taking those that come with grants. For example, the Japanese government has come up with a grant for construction or upgrading of health centers, 2 health centers on the Copper Belt. I think one will be in Chipili, Mushili, and another one in Kitwe. I can't remember the name of the town. And obviously, Mushili, not Chipili, Mushili in Dola. And then in Kitwe, I've just forgotten the name, it starts with a C, one of the townships there. And so such hospitals, normally when it's a grant and it's at $40 million, when it starts, sometimes it just takes a very short period of time, maybe 6 months, 9 months, such a facility finishes. But the government wants, because of the model of construction, where you are talking about phases. For example, I was in Kawambwa, a big hospital, incomplete. I was in Milenge, another hospital, but it's operational. It's untidy, and we want to get away from that untidy way of doing things. Better we finish one, then we start another one. Thank you.
The Honorable Member from Winilunga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've withdrawn my question. I will see her at the office.
The Honorable Member for Nyimba, Honorable Member for Chipiri will be the last one.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, listening to the Minister of Health and the answers given to the people of Chipiri, just want to ask the Minister of Health. Minister, looking at the backlog of hospitals you have and completed hospitals, I think you may agree with me that some we call them hospitals when there's just an administration block, and people claim that this is a hospital. And Chipiri, you've got no plans. I mean, the plans you have, it's not today or tomorrow. My question is, to those outstanding hospitals, since I know my Honorable Speaker, I'm asking this question because it's coming from the Minister of Health. When do you think you send the contractors on hospitals which are still not attended to? And you may agree with me that assurance have been made from early last year. For example, like a hospital in Nyimba, where I was told it to be completed in June, and now this year, it's June last year. Now we are in March, and we haven't seen people on site. So my question is, when are you going to start sending contractors on the backlog of uncompleted hospitals you have, so that we can construct a hospital for the people of Chipiri? Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see that the Honorable Member for Nyimba is trying to take my attention for Nyimba. I'm fully aware of the situation in Nyimba, and the good news is that just give us time. Things will work. Just give us time and trust us. Thank you.
Honorable Member for Chipiri, conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, I know I've never met you in your office. I've been coming to your office, but either you are busy, you are in the meeting over the same issue. But I've been seeing other officers. Because for me, if I go to any office, I find that you are not there, like the local government minister. I've been there, but I've been seeing the permanent secretaries. Okay, so in the same vein, I've been coming to your office. Now, I don't want to talk much about information that I have. Now, just wanted to find out from you whether you have any donor agents who could come, or let me put it in this way: do you have any plan from the donor agencies who could support this kind of construction as that now, apart from what you have mentioned of two mini hospitals which are going to be constructed somewhere, not in Chipiri, so that you can consider my constituents, my district, so that if you promise, I tell my people that we prepare drums, that together we dance with my people. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Honorable, I don't want to give you a date and then you come and say it's June, like is the case there. So we want to really, as a ministry, sit down, look at the resources that we have this year, because this year, compared to last year, we have more resources, and it is possible to finish some of the outstanding hospitals that are already under construction, like the Nyimba one and the others. I think there are about 36 hospitals that are being constructed countrywide. So we will do our best within this year's budget to see that we finish some of those this year. Now, I know that next year, I think second half of next year, we are supposed to start on the 30 district hospitals, which are districts which were newly constructed. But you see, there are 30. Now, as to which one of the 30 will be the first, which one will be the last, I can't say now. And I don't want to just decide without looking at other factors. For example, population. What about the nearest? How many other health facilities other than a district hospital does that community have? So that we are seen to be doing things that really help the entire country at the same time. So just give us time. We will come back. We will analyze the 30 areas, the newly established districts, and we'll put them. So if Chipiri comes number one, then it will be easy for me to say next year, second quarter of next year, we'll start with Chipiri. Otherwise, I cannot specifically say it now. Other than that is to say, like I've said already, that the goodwill is there. I've already mentioned the Japanese, for example. There are other donors, and we ourselves, I'm also in close consultation with the Minister of Finance, because like I said, we have an imbalanced way of dealing with development in the past government. And so we are trying to make sure that we now look at the whole country. Because even if you found that this imbalance would be tilted to a particular province, you find that even in that same province, some districts were completely left out, and some districts got much more than what they required. So we have to be very careful so that anybody who sees, I would not have to explain as a minister as why I went there. The, the, the document will explain itself. Because, Mr. Speaker, I'm here today as minister. Tomorrow, there will be somebody else. So it's very important that as a minister, I do that which, so that even when I'm out, nobody will come here and say she was biased. I have no business with being biased, because as a minister, I'm a minister for Zambians and for all the 116 districts, and I care for everybody. So that's why I've said, just hold us and wait. Just give us a bit of time so that when we come, we want things. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's the truth. You find sometimes in a ministry, things go to where the minister comes from. Everything goes to where the officers also come from, or the director responsible, or the PhD responsible. That has been the kind of development that we saw ourselves. This afternoon, this house, or this evening, will be debating issues of values, and these are the issues that and principles of governance in general. So this administration, the president is very clear. He wants the 20 plus citizens of this country to be served equitably. And as a member of that cabinet, if I'm anything worth my salt, I must first by starting to promote and also to respect the one who has put me in this position. I'm not acting as minister myself, I'm acting on behalf of HH. He has a vision, I have to toe that line. So I'll not go away from that line. There will be mistakes because I'm only a human. But colleagues both from the right and the left are free to come and talk to me and help me, because I can't be everywhere. Sometimes I might not really know what is really happening in a particular area. So I may sometimes decide to give a hospital in Kaputa as opposed to Chipiri, because Kaputa has been pushing. So sometimes, of course, pushing the way the MP for Chipiri is pushing, naturally, you know, I'll find myself starting with Chipiri because Chipiri has been making noise and I don't want that noise to continue. But in that process, I might make a mistake because another constituency which really, or district which deserves more than Chipiri might come up. That's why we must sit down, study the population, study the neighborhood, and study and do things in a logical manner and methodical. Thank you.
Next question. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 180.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Honorable Member of Parliament for Kalabo, Mr. Miyuti, is asking the Minister of Health when government will improve the supply of essential drugs to health facilities in Kalabo district. Our response, Mr. Speaker, is as follows. Government has put in place measures to improve the supply of essential drugs to public health facilities countrywide, including Kalabo district. The House may wish to note that government through ZAMSA has made procurements for essential medicines valued at more than 500 million kwacha currently, and deliveries have commenced. Key essential medicines such as antibiotics and painkillers and the rest, which were lowly stocked, are being delivered within the week, this week, to facilities in Western Province, and Kalabo in particular will benefit from this distribution of essential medicine. Mr. Speaker, I may want to state here that for other provinces like Northwestern, I think Northern, if that's not Luapula, it must be Northern Muchinga, sorry if I'm mistaken. I'm aware that this has started with those areas, but I was told that this week there would be in Western Province. Further, the House may wish to note that government is committed to improving the availability of essential medicine, and we are hoping that this first quarter, end of first quarter into second quarter of 2023, we'll be getting what we call some kits, center kits, because we did last year order 42,000 health center kits, and we are hoping that part of that consignment should start coming in end of first quarter and early into the second quarter. And with that, we hope that there will be some improvement. We are also getting bulk procurements from countries like Egypt, and we also have some arrangements with other UN agencies to just support us, since they already have confirmed procurement consignments which they've ordered, and so we are trying to enter into some arrangement with them. Other than that, we have some long-term framework contracts for supply of essential medicines and medical supplies. The good news long-term is that the new Dawn government's desire is that we should start encouraging new investors into the sector to be able to begin to produce most of these essential drugs, so that we reduce on flight of money out of the country. Thank you.
Supplementary questions by Honorable Members, if any. Honorable Member for Chiengi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, you're talking about procurement of essential medicines. Most of the time I've listened to you talking about procurement of essential medicines. And the essential medicines that you mentioned, I always wonder why we leave out the people who are having mental challenges, because their medicine is very, very expensive. Why is it that our government is not putting this also as a priority? Because it's also just a disease like any other disease. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is actually true that for some time now, the mental department of our hospitals have had very low drugs for those with mental cases. And what we have done as a ministry is specifically we have deliberately made a special order for the medical hospital. And of course, for that purpose, for those that have those challenges. And we hope that with the orders that have been placed, we hope that within a short period of time, those specific specialized drugs for mental cases will be in the country. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Interacting with the medical officer, Kalabo District, was indicating that they are distributing those essential drug kits for health centers. However, my question is, what would be the frequency of supplies of these kits to these centers, knowing that where we are coming from, the centers had totally had nothing. And so it's like this supply is going to be the start up. So how frequent will the centers be receiving these kits? Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Honorable, for confirming that the drugs are currently being distributed in your province, including your district. I want to say that I think for the last 4 months or so, the last report in the last 2 months that the ministry has received from ZAMSA is to the effect that at the moment they've kind of stabilized in terms of frequencies of distributing drugs countrywide, whereas in the past, maybe in a year, there would be maybe 2 or 3 deliveries. In this regard, they are already past the 5th delivery. and they think that they'll reach 6 deliveries. According to their report to us, they are saying that they want to maintain 6 deliveries at a time. So we hope that that can stabilize. But we know that to stabilize supplies, it's not really about how many times one delivers, because it's also about what quantities are you delivering. What we have found is that in an effort to build capacity in terms of even information, ZAMSA is getting to a point where they are reviewing the data which they are using, because the data that they're using is old data. Whereas they will send drugs, and those drugs they send, they think that the population will use that drug maybe for a month or 2 months, but it is found that within 3 weeks, those drugs which are meant for 2 months or 3 months are already finished. Now there are two things here. Either the disease burden has increased, and the population has increased, or also the thefts that we continue to hear about, and the number of some of our health workers are being arrested, and at least that is pleasing, including Western Province. We've received several reports from Western Province in some districts, and I think, is it Kalabo in particular where there was theft? There, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's Kalabo. So we are also looking at how we can reduce thefts of drugs. ZAMRA is doing everything possible to build on their capacity, and ZAMSA also is doing everything possible. The ministry also and the hospitals themselves are also doing everything to see how best we can improve. So we will stabilize the supply chain once we get bulk, the bulk that we are waiting from Denmark through Mission Pharma, the institution that once upon a time, at the time when I was Minister of Health, I think 2008, 2009, that time, around that time, Mission Pharma was the company that used to supply. But by the time we took over, we discovered that Mission Pharma had left because the then government was unable to pay them on time. And so that's the disruption in as far as center kits in particular are concerned. So we brought them back. We've had to pay them what was owed all the years, past years, and because of that payment, they were able to agree to supply us. So that is one of the 42,000 kits that we are waiting for. Now, if we can get those kits, end of first quarter, then we can talk about stabilizing, because the center kits will constitute maybe 85% of the needs at the lower level. That is the health centers, the health posts. So if we can get that stock in country, I can 100% guarantee you that we will stabilize supplies at that level. But we will still remain with the big hospitals, the tertiary hospitals like UTH and the like. Those are where now we are making attempts to get drugs from countries like Egypt, because Egypt is near. The resources, the value of their, the prices are affordable. The quality is also good. Those are places where we're opening up. We're also looking at India and looking at big companies. Now, that is for the immediate. So that is to help stabilize. But long-term, mid-term to long-term, we're looking now at establishing local industry here and supporting local industry. So we are hopeful, for example, that with the EU deal between EU and Zambia, where we have the EU manufacturers that have capacity, that have the know-how, that have the resources to invest, and partnering with the Zambian manufacturers, we are hopeful that in the shortest period of time, Zambia will stop importing at least to some level of percentage. If we can get Zambia to locally produce over 70%, 80%, and only import 10%, I think we'll be saying that we are able to stabilize 100%. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Shwangandu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And let me start by sympathizing with the Honorable Minister. I've seen that she's got some physical challenge and she's obviously being stressed. I just wanted to find out from the Honorable Minister, through you, Mr. Speaker. The President, on the official opening of this session, in his speech, did make reference to some medical kits. And there was an assurance that those medical kits were going to be in before the end of last year. I would like to just find out from the minister if these are the same kits she's referring to, or indeed those kits that the president spoke about last year were delivered, and this is another set of medical kits that the honorable colleague from Karabo should be expecting in his district and Shwangandu as well. I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not last year as such. It is the official opening speech of His Excellency, which gives rise to the 2023 budget, whereas he talked about the procurement of the 42,000 kits, which kits will last for 1 year. It's a bulk buy to last for 1 year. That's the one, and because it's bulk and it's going to last for 1 year, to produce that takes time. To transport that, because it's from Europe, takes time. That is the one we're saying is supposed to come in the country end of first quarter, getting into second quarter. And it will not all of it come at the same time, because it's bulk. Even issues of storage would come into play. But about 7,000 of the 42,000 is what will first come. And once that comes in, the others will start flowing. Before the 7,000 finishes, we'll be able to receive the other. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Kankoyo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think the government's measures which were being done in the near past has seen an improvement in the level of drugs across the country. But I wanted to get it right from the Minister of Health. When are we likely to receive the bulk from Egypt? Because I still believe this intervention is going to change a lot of supply chain in the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Truthfully speaking, my hope was that even as I speak now, the issue of Egypt would have been in the past tense. But as you know, we have pieces of legislation that are quite cumbersome. And it is our hope that the Minister of Finance will come to this House to try and start making amendments to some of the laws that were put in place, which really are causing us trouble. And so we are hoping that the Egyptian drugs would be in the country, in fact, earlier than the mission farmer kits, because Egypt takes 6 weeks to deliver any item that one imports from there. But all we have been informed is that we were expecting the Egyptian drugs in the country end of March or mid-April. But I'm not sure myself until I get a clear roadmap from ZAMSA. I will not commit myself on the actual date. But we are hoping that those should come in. And for sure, once we begin to receive the Mission Farmer Center kits and the bulk from UNICEF, from Egypt, we will see a stable supply. Because then, once we have these bulk buys and all these kits in country, when there's a reduction we can then fill up that reduction almost immediately with our local suppliers. Because, Mr. Speaker, we've also had challenges with our local suppliers, whereas even where they have been given orders, you find that the supply takes so long, and sometimes they fail to supply 100% what they have said they can supply. And also because of the lengthy procurement procedures, you find that even at a time when a local supplier is finally given the contract to supply, the dollar kwacha ratio would have changed. And so that in itself again creates a problem, because then the local supplier would say, when I bid for this order, dollar was 15 to 1. Now dollar is at 20. We must change the figures. That begins the whole process once again. So there is a lot of work to be done. I think these are the things the president has been talking about, and blocking some rigidities which are actually standing in our ways. Whereas even when you have the money, it's just sitting there, the goods are nowhere to be seen. Thank you.
Let's make progress. Next question. The Honorable Minister of Energy. What? No. No, the members have asked enough. Next question. The Honorable Member for Kanchivia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Question 181. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Member of Parliament for Kanchivia, Mr. Chanda, to ask the Minister of Energy two questions. A, when the electrification of secondary schools in Kanchivia parliamentary constituency will commence to facilitate the learning of information communication technology subjects, and B, what has caused the delay to commence the project? Mr. Speaker, the answer to A is as follows. The government of the Republic of Zambia, through the Rural Electrification Authority, RIA, commenced the electrification of schools and other public institutions in Kanchivia parliamentary constituency. The project involved electricity supply to Kopa Primary School, Chief Kopa's New Palace, Kopa Day Secondary School, Kopa Zawa Campsite, and the surrounding areas. The work involved the construction of a total 2,658 kilometers of 33 kV overhead line from the existing 33 kV overhead line in Kopa area, and a total of 15,615 kilometers of 400 voltage overhead line. The project was successfully completed in December 2022 and technically commissioned on 22nd January 2023. The total value of the project, which included material and labor, was 8,483 kwacha. Answer to question B, there has been no delay in the commencement of the electrification project, as stated in A above. The COPA 2021 Lot 2 grid intensification project has been successfully completed and was technically commissioned. The project has over 400 beneficiaries, which include 330 grass-thatched houses ready to be connected using already installed ready boards. Mr. Speaker, let me give a bit more information just for clarity. In the year 2020, the Rural Electrification Authority conducted feasibility studies for the possible electrification of various public institutions and the surrounding areas in the Kanchivia parliamentary constituency. The authority planned to implement the Kavinga grid extension project at a total cost of 4.6 million. The project involves tapping of power from Chalabesa Mission and constructing a total of 52.6 kilometers of the 3 kV overhead grid lines to supply power to Chalabesa Day Secondary School, Muntuatuka Community School, Kawama Primary School and Rural Health Center, Kabinga Rural Health Center, Chief Kabinga's Palace, Kabinga Primary School, Kalulu Secondary School, and surrounding area. However, the project could not take off due to insufficient funds. The actual implementation of the project will be subject to the availability of funds. Further, the following works have been done. At Mutamba School, school is already connected on supply. Chakopo School, the school is connected and on supply. Chikakala School, the quotation was issued amounting to 6.8 million awaiting payment. Mikuba Secondary School, the school is connected and on supply. Kanchivia Basic School, the quotation was issued amounting to 8.45 thousand kwacha awaiting payment. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
The Honorable Member for Kanchivia.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much for the opportunity to ask my supplementary question. And in asking my supplementary question, Mr. Speaker, the question from the people of Kanchivia to the Minister of Energy was specific to the secondary schools in Kanchivia. But of course, I'm grateful that he has given bonus answers, of course, highlighting certain challenges. Kanchivia is made up of 4 chiefdoms, Mr. Speaker. Of the 4 chiefdoms, one chiefdom called Kabinga Chiefdom has no access to electricity. And that is the chiefdom the Honorable Minister says a 40 million project could not be done and would be done on availability or when there's availability of funds. Mr. Speaker, that is a very big challenge because this is an area, this is a chiefdom that holds so much potential. But of the 4 chiefdoms, it's the only chiefdom without access to electricity whatsoever. But my question, Mr. Speaker, very specific to what I'd asked is because when we look at the various government policies, we look at government's ICT policy, we look at the Smart Zambia Institute and the purposiveness behind its creation, we look at the National Implementation Framework for ICT, we look at the Smart Education Master Plan 2018 to 2028. All these policy frameworks, Mr. Speaker, envisage that ICT plays a critical role in the transformation of education delivery and from the traditional approaches to the digital student-centered sort of delivery for education. The Transforming Education Summit, TES, Mr. Speaker, the National Consultation Report, section 6.4, page 33, shows the number of schools with internet province by province. My question is tied to ICT, electricity vis-a-vis ICT, and the role that ICT plays in ensuring quality education. Mr. Speaker, as of 2020, there were 10,900 schools, and of those schools, only 2,585 schools had internet connectivity. This is the 2020 EMIS report. My question then to the minister is tying electrification to ICT to quality education for the students in Kanchivia. When we look at the secondary schools in Kanchivia, some of them that got quotations and have not been connected, then we have big schools like Kabinga Day Secondary School. Kabinga has no electricity. We have John Mubanga Day Secondary School, there's no electricity, etc. Chewe Chimfamba Day Secondary School, no electricity. What is being done by government to ensure that electricity is supplied to these secondary schools to enhance ICT education? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Energy. Honorable members, let's desist from debating. Let's just concentrate to questions. But the honorable member for Kanchivia started debating. He enjoys. The honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good question, Honorable Chanda. Fortunately, this year, there is an additional 156 million, which is drawn from all constituencies from the CDF. So we'll ensure that one of the schools in Kanchivia, the secondary schools that is in question, will be given priority so that power can be connected to one of them. Thank you so much.
The honorable member for Chiwangandu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll take advantage of this question to remind the Honorable Minister that you, last week, when he responded to my question, you directed him to avail us the special rates that will be applicable to our rural people, so that RIA, whose responsibilities it is to ensure connectivity into our rural areas remains relevant. And I'm posing this question to the Honorable Minister. What rates, connection rates, or connection fees rather, will be applicable to these surrounding areas you have mentioned other than the schools in Kanchivia constituency? And when you are going to avail to us, especially rural MPs, those special rates that you assured the Speaker that you were going to make available to the honorable members. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honorable members, let's stick to questions, because if we take advantage of a particular question, let's just zero in and ask to be precise just there in Kanchivia, because now this question was just constituency-based. Now we are coming up with all sort of mathematics, honorable member. May the honorable minister respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to segregate between high density and low density areas. Rural areas are in the same category as low density areas like Kavulonga. Okay, so we are working on tariffs to separate high density in rural areas and low density in rural areas, high density in urban areas and low density areas in urban areas. I submit.
The honorable member for Dundumwezi.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, you have indicated that your ministry intends to use 1 million of our CDF this year. May I know how many kilometers will this 1 million connect Kanchivia? How many kilometers will be connected in Kanchivia from the 1 million that you intend to get from the Constituency Development Fund? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you. It is not a question of using Mr. Speaker, sorry, it's not a question of using 1 million from Kanchivia. It is 156 million, which will be used in certain areas in each province. That is where this 156 million will be used. It's not picking 1 million from Kanchivia and use it specifically for Kanchivia. No, that is not what you are doing. I submit.
Last one, the honorable member for Kanchivia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my follow-up question to the good minister is the chiefdom that is in dire need of electricity or electrification is a chiefdom called Kavinga Chiefdom. There's zero electricity in that chiefdom. And so, according to the minister, the quotation came to about 40 million kwacha. In connecting the secondary schools, I would wish to submit and request the Honorable Minister that consider prioritizing Kabinga Day Secondary School. Because when you take electricity to Kabinga Day Secondary School, then you have taken electricity to Kabinga Chiefdom. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This year, Rural Education Authority was given 760 million kwacha towards rural education, with an additional 156 million. The honorable member of Kanchibia is talking of 40 million. If this is part of this, the strategic plan that will be implemented for Kanchibia, this amount will be made available so that at least one of the secondary schools can be electrified. Submit.
You can go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order pursuant to Standing Order 65, 1B. The Honorable Minister, in his response, is saying the rural areas such as Kabinga, Kopa, are considered to be low density compared to Kabulonga. Mr. Speaker, is the Honorable Minister in order to mislead this August House and the people of Kanchivia to equate the people of Kabinga to people in Kabulonga Kud Road? Is in order, Mr. Speaker? I think so, very serious ruling on this matter.
I think the Honorable Minister, I think is in order. The Honorable Minister, these are quantitative figures that it depends how you look at it. Maybe they've used a quantitative approach to arrive at that particular suggestion. So it depends how you look at it, and the minister hasn't been given opportunity to explain himself. So the Honorable Minister, since he's in executive and he runs a ministry, it depends the factors he's using to arrive at that. Because there should be parameters at any given research that you are using to arrive at certain things. There are parameters that you have to use. So unless you were part of it when carrying out a particular research, you were part of the people that looked at that audience, you'll be able to ascertain exactly. Let's make progress. The clerk will now read the order of the day.
Thanks, His Excellency the President's address, motion of 28th February, resumption of debate.
When the House adjourned yesterday, Wednesday, 1st March 2023, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honorable Member from Mapatizia that the thanks of this Assembly be recorded for the exposition of the public policy contained in His Excellency the President's address. Any further debate? Any further debate? The Honorable Member for Kawambwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to debate the President's speech delivered to this House last Friday. the president was seated in that very chair, Mr. Speaker. I bet a different one, different
No, he
color.
sat on in the orange one.
So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very confident. I heard what the delivery of the speech. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for the fact that when our colleagues on the right fails to provide leadership, we should step up and fill in the gap, I would have gone on the floor of this House and torn the speech to pieces. But I've elected to say I need to fill in the gaps which we are seeing as our colleagues fail to provide that which they pleaded with the Zambian people that they will provide. Mr. Speaker, the presidential speech was unbelievably uninspiring. The president failed to engage the Zambian people. The president had an opportunity for a change to come out and provide that which the Zambian people are expecting of him. And unfortunately, he fell short of that. Mr. Speaker, the president, I'm going to deal with a few issues. I'll start with one particular issue which the president spoke to. This is coming from the verbatim. The reason I'm using both the actual speech and the verbatim is because the president pronounced certain things that were not in his original speech, but they are contained in the verbatim.
Order. May the leader of opposition turn off the mic. It's disrupting.
On page 25 of the verbatim, the president is quoted as saying, with the changes we have made at DPP, SEC, and the establishment of dedicated courtrooms for economic and financial crimes, cases must now end in 90 days, not in 2 years or 3 years. This is what the president said. The president has got no jurisdiction to direct the judiciary on how they run the affairs of the judiciary. That's the hallmark of separation of powers. Just like the president cannot direct the legislature on do's and don'ts because he's overstepping, the president has only the jurisdiction over the executive. There he can direct, he can do whatever he wants. But to step into the judiciary and the legislature, that is not acceptable. So that we will not support. He must refrain from misdirecting himself as he did on that particular day. The separation of power is very clear. I think we need a workshop. I go to the speech on page 20 of this speech. The president is saying our local communities are the gatekeepers for our natural resources. We have therefore embraced the paradigm of strong community involvement and partnership in the management of our natural resources. But why did the president fall short of talking about the cancelled hunting concessions? There's been an uproar because that is one of the issues of hunting concessions which were cancelled. We were expecting the president to come here and provide leadership to castigate those who were part and parcel of the flawed cancelled concessions so that our people who are beneficiaries from these concessions can have some peace and would have talked about it. And people are going to be happy. In our fight against corruption, there shall be no sacred cows. Therefore, we urge every Zambian to uphold integrity and denounce him of corrupt practices. Indeed, the president was right. But why didn't he go all the way through? We expected the president to go out there and talk about a council chairperson in Luapula province who was involved in illegal mining. Instead of him getting the sentence, instead of him being dealt with, he was rewarded with the position of council chairperson. Is that how you deal with corruption? Is that how you deal with illegal mining? In fact, Mr. Speaker, it's the only reason, because the gentleman in question was involved in the illegal mining of sugilite. It's the only reason why others said, oh, so if you are involved in illegal mining of sugilite, you can be rewarded. So we shall not be surprised if the other culprits involved in the legal mining of sugilite are also rewarded. Mr. Speaker, I go further to page 13. On page 13 of this presidential address, the president is saying, in addition, government has set aside 156 million from the CDF to expedite rural electrification. Now it has to be government, central government, who must decide what must happen to CDF. What is the role of the CDF committees? The role of my CDF committees? This is highly, highly irregular. This must not be allowed to happen, and this will not be allowed to happen. I go to page 12. Our government is addressing this situation. The situation the president is trying to address.
Honorable member, order. There's a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your wonderful kindness. The honorable member who is debating, out of the confusion of being removed from his seat of Secretary General, is talking about something that is not in the presidential speech. The president never talked about sugilite, Mr. Speaker. Can he withdraw that? He's out of order. Thank you.
Honorable members, let's avoid debating each other. You saying it is a former Secretary General may not sit very well, although it could be true. So let's desist from debating ourselves. May the honorable member continue.
Mr. Speaker, I totally agree. There are so many former Secretary Generals, there are so many former ministers, and sooner than later, we shall have former ministers coming from the other side. So it's a natural process. We shall have President Hakainde Hichilema very soon as a former president very soon. So that is a natural phenomenon. The president spoke about overcrowded prisons. He spoke about the furniture. But why was the president shy to say, building on what the PF did? They constructed new prisons. For us, our duty is just to go and take furniture there. What's wrong with admitting and acknowledging the great works that your colleagues have done? We cannot build this country to a greater nation that we desire to be if you do not acknowledge the foundations which were laid by those who have gone ahead of you. So, Mr. Speaker, on page 9, the president talked about patriotism. He spoke about protect the interests of our country by addressing both internal and external security threats, maintaining peace and stability. But why didn't he talk about the 22 Afghani runaways who were harbored in this country? That is the duty. The president must inform us. He must tell us to say, actually, we are keeping some criminals who were chased from South Africa, Zimbabwe, and now they are within our boundaries. It is his responsibility to come and talk to us about such things. In fact, we are talking about morality and ethics. That's what the president must do. If the president does not do that, we shall step in and do it for him, because it is our duty, especially as we prepare to take over government within the next 36 months. I thank you.
The Leader of Opposition.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to add a few words to the President's address. Mr. Speaker, Article 9.2 provides for the President's address to Parliament. And to quote, it says, the President shall, once in every year, report to the National Assembly on the progress made in the application of the values and principles specified under this part.
Mr. Speaker, the operative word there is progress. The Constitution mandates the President to report progress. So sometimes it's very difficult because the Constitution is very clear. It says he must report progress. The question that I have on the floor is, what if there's no progress? What does the President do? I know that many of us went through this report. It's an abbreviated report, a very short report. Mr. Speaker, if you look through, you see spaces, the font is big, but it's still a very short report. It only goes to confirm one thing. There was very little progress that was made the past 1 year. Mr. Speaker, I sympathize with the technocrats who had to write this report. They struggled to put the text together. There was nothing to write. They really struggled to put text together just to enable the President to come and make that report, because the Constitution says so. If you look at our national values and principles, Mr. Speaker, there is morality and ethics. We were expecting too much from the President if he talked about morality and ethics in the face of what has transpired. Mr. Speaker, the memories are fresh in the minds of the Zambian people. We've had very questionable transactions under this government. How was the President expected to deliver a speech on morality and ethics when the award of audit contracts to the Army and Defense Forces are given to friendly companies? How was the President going to talk about morality and ethics? There is procurement of fertilizers costing 35 million and government pays 50 million. And you expected the President to speak to morality and ethics on this floor. How was he going to do that? Honorable member, I think let's stick to the speech. No. There are insinuations that you are making about fertilizer, which is not part of the speech. So as we are debating, let's stick to the speech. Because those allegations you are making against fertilizer, there's nothing that we can look at as regards to the same. So let's just stick to the speech that was delivered on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, I'm really constrained, but I'll say this. When we are talking about morality and ethics, we are looking at how government has performed. And we can't run away from what has happened under this government. We will not come here and, start speaking to one another like we're in love affair. Let's be serious with government business. What I'm referring to is government business. These are things that have happened under this government. And that's what I'm referring to. I will therefore proceed. Yes, so there are consultancy contracts, $35 million awarded to friendly companies. And you expect the President to speak to morality and ethics. How? How would the President do that? Order. There's a point of order by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm highly constrained to rise on a point of order on the leader of the opposition, Honorable Munduvire, whom we all consider as very level-headed in the manner he presents his debates. I am surprised, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to item 65 of our guiding book, that Honorable Munduvire could stand in this chamber and indicate that we bought fertilizer at more than 50,000, I think he said 65,000 or 75,000. I would like him to show proof, Mr. Speaker, because he's telling the whole country, the whole world, that we actually bought fertilizer at a price higher than he knew was the price. Mr. Speaker, is he in order to mislead himself in this very respectful manner which is debating? Mr. Speaker, I need your very serious ruling, because these are issues which, if not corrected, keep on misleading the nation. I seek your ruling, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Leader of Opposition is out of order. The honorable leader of opposition, I think even is in his heart, he knows that he's out of order. By insinuating that there was some misguide in terms of procurement of fertilizer that was done without proof whatsoever. So I think let's desist from such allegations on the floor of the House, because we end up misleading ourselves and misleading the listeners out there. I've guided that let's just stick to the presidential speech. If I was a debater, I think the debate I used to do at Sparta Day, I can do very well. Because we have just to stick to what we really want. It's the presidential speech. You can puncture it if you want, but let's just stick to it. You can go ahead, Honorable Leader of Opposition.
Just to give comfort to the Speaker, I was also the best debater at Kamala Secondary School. So I think we share something in common, Mr. Speaker. I will proceed. Maybe just to reduce panic on my colleagues on the right, I'll go to something lighter. Let's talk about democracy and constitutionalism. Mr. Speaker, it was going to be very difficult for His Excellency the President to deliver on the progress made on democracy and constitutionalism in the face of the Kavushi and Kwacha by-elections. It was going to be very difficult. And if at all anybody here expected the President to speak or give progress on democracy and constitutionalism, we're expecting too much. It was very difficult. His Excellency was constrained because of what happened in Kavushi and Kwacha. That is the reason, Mr. Speaker, why the report is abbreviated. The report has only got a few lines. It was very, very difficult to build up text on those things. So, Mr. Speaker, when you talk about human dignity, equity, social justice, equality, non-discrimination, in the face of prolonged detentions, people held for a number of days on bondable offenses, what progress did we want the President to report to this House, given that innocent people are tortured, suspects are tortured, and we expected the President to deliver progress on democracy and constitutionalism. Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Auditor General is provided for under the Constitution as an oversight body.
There's a point of order from Honorable Member, which one? For Katombola.
We'll keep them busy today, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm at pains. The point of order is raised according to our standing orders number 65. For Honorable Mundovile, a learned colleague of mine, to be debating that is in order, Mr. Speaker, knowing the record of the past government, where there were extrajudicial killings, we lost a number of our citizens. Is in order to debate in that fashion, that there are extrajudicial detentions without laying evidence on the floor of this House, thereby misleading the whole world. We are at pain, Mr. Speaker. Could you make a ruling on that part, Mr. Speaker? I thank you.
Order. The rules of the House is that we should always debate with facts. If we are making assertions or allegations, they have to be backed by facts. So the honorable member for the leader of opposition is out of order because he can't substantiate his points. He can't substantiate by way of backing to show proof that he can lay on the table to prove that there are people that there is the extrajudicial killing that is that, or extrajudicial detention. The point is that don't make assertions on the floor of the House which you can't substantiate. That is the point. Any other thing, I think, remains as guided. You can continue.
Mr. Speaker, I will read from Article 259 2A. It's been very difficult to make progress, Madam Mr. Speaker, by the new Dawn government. a lot of difficulty in them recording progress on values, for obvious reasons. So Article 259 reads, a person empowered to make a nomination or appointment to a public office shall, where possible, ensure that nomination or appointment reflects regional diversity of the people of Zambia. This is the Constitution. But this is the Constitution. I need your protection. I'm just quoting the Constitution. I need your protection.
Order. Order. Don't speak while don't debate while he's seated. Both the right and the left. Your point of order is granted.
Mr. Speaker, I'm at pains to be in this house at this moment because here where we are here to represent the 19 million Zambians. And our standing orders are very clear.
You are at pains.
I'm citing
order
to be here.
Oh, I thought maybe you want painkiller.
Mr. Speaker, this is not a joking session, but a working session. Mr. Speaker, Standing Order number 204G provides that a member shall listen in silence and follow deliberations in silence. Mr. Speaker, the rule of debate is that when a debater is debating, you take points so that you come and counter-react. How then do we have this circus in the House where the right have to defend themselves through noise making? Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, even your chairing is being undermined by that action.
Yes, that's very true. Why can't they
Mr. Speaker, we are here. We are here to debate and interrogate the speech. They have the right to come and defend the speech at their time of debate, not from their chairs and defend the speech whilst making noise, disturbing the debater, and also passing running comments that undermine all of us on the left, including you, Mr. Chairperson. Are they in order, Mr. Chairperson, collectively those on your right, except for a few, to make noise and running comments whilst you are presiding over a very serious session, a very serious debate of a presidential speech of our nation? I seek your very serious ruling, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I thank you for your observation, and also thank you that you would want this House to have a lot of sanity and decorum. I think, honorable members, let's ensure that we maintain peace and tranquility in this House. The honorable member can continue.
Honorable Kapianga, thank you very much for that assistance. And I hope that colleagues on the right can now listen in silence. What I was quoting was the Constitution. Why do you want to argue the Constitutional provision? So, Mr. Speaker, I'll read Article 259. A person empowered to make a nomination or appointment to a public office shall, where possible, ensure the nomination or appointment reflects the regional diversity of the people of Zambia. This is a very important provision. And Mr. Speaker, on Thursday, when I was debating the motion of suspending the standing orders, I actually brought it on the floor of the House that as members of Parliament, we were expectant. Our expectations were very high. And I highlighted some of the things that we wanted the President to speak about. It remains a notorious fact, Mr. Speaker, that out there in the media, radios and TVs, there have been concerns from the Zambian people. Some people have gone to the extent of presenting lists of appointments. And it's a matter that we can decide today to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that does not happen. What we expected was the President to take it upon himself and address himself to this particular matter, because it's a matter that borders on one of the values and principles in our Constitution under patriotism and national unity.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, we need sanity. I think it's not fair. We can't have 10 points of order on one debate. I don't think we should proceed that way.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order. I rise on a point of order on the Leader of Opposition pertaining to the statements which has made arising from Article 65 of our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, it is a matter of principle and fact that when you speak and you allege, you must ensure that you are making allegations with clean hands. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, this is Article 65. I'm raising a point of order on you. Yes. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who's leader of opposition is aware of what transpired in the past and what is obtaining now. I'm aware that in this House, we have the leader of the opposition and the chief whip of the ruling party. And he has rightly quoted that when making appointments, you must take into account regional consideration and other factors according to the Constitution. As he's speaking and making those statements, why is he not telling the nation that the leader of opposition and his whip are from the same region, the same issues which you had raised on the floor of this House? Why are you not raising those issues, Mr. Speaker? They raised those issues on us here. They raised points of order on us. Is in order not to refer to what they were alleging in the past and what they are doing now, arising from Article 65. Can I continue? Order. I think as we debate, let's bear in mind that we are one Zambia, I must guide, one nation. And we should not at any given point try to point at issues without looking at ourselves critically. So that's my guide. Let's all the time, as leaders, let's ensure that issues to do with regions, issues to do with tribes should not be part of our debate. because as our constitution says, it allows intermarriages. So all of us, we are related. So trying to get political attention, whether from the right or left, let's desist from those utterances. Because our people out there, let's ensure that our primary objective is to ensure that we unite them. As much as we may be divided politically, but let's remain unity in the family of being Zambian. I think that's my guide. The issue of region or politics should not arise going forward. May the honorable member continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with due respect to fellow Councillor Jack Mwimbu, I will decide not to descend into that arena and trivialize the debate on the floor of the House. I will ignore what he said. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So the issue really was just on Article 259. And I think the expectation from this side was that under the heading of patriotism and national unity, we expected the President to spend a bit more time because this subject is topical. And I will not be part of a team or a cadre of MPs who are going to sit here and pretend that there's no problem. There is a problem, and it must be addressed. Because the fact that it's debated every day on radio and TV, I think it was just in order that as the President came here, and in line with the Constitution, it was in order for him to put that matter to rest by speaking to it. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the size, if you look at this speech, it was very evident, like I said at the beginning, that the content that is here, technocrats struggled to put this text together. And I don't blame them. What could they have said? A lot has happened as I've catalogued, as I've outlined. You talk about ethics and morality. It's just yesterday. I mean, you have a DC stealing something every day under the New Dawn government. You have Deputy PSS stealing things every other day. You know, I mean, what did you expect the President to say? What did you expect the President to say? Mr. Speaker, my worry is that where are they getting these habits? These DCs and deputy parents, where are they getting these habits of stealing every other day? It's a source of concern. We are talking about a party of angels, but every other member is accused of stealing something every other day. Where are they getting these habits from? Your Honor, the Vice President, we need a day of prayer. We should spend time to pray for the UPND because I think there's a spirit of stealing and picking things that don't belong to them that has befallen the party. And I think we need to come together in the spirit of brotherhood and camaraderie to pray for this party that is leading us today so that that spirit can be exercised. Your Honor, the Vice President. With those few remarks, I wish to thank you.
Order. The Honorable Member from Mbabala.
Mr. Speaker, according to Article 65 of our order, standing orders, relevance of speech, the known thieves in this country are known. All the tactics of stealing came from PF. Is he in order? Is he in order to talk about a new Dawn government that is assuring that nobody is stealing? Those who are found questionable are being disciplined. Is he in order, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
It was a point of order. The Honorable Member for Nalikwanda.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. To give me a chance to talk after the leader of the opposition has spoken. Mr. Speaker, it's very disappointing that today they can start talking about corruption in UPND or the UPND government. They are forgetting that currently the country owes about 270 billion kwacha which they borrowed over a period of maybe 5 to 6 years. To date, they are not able to account on how they use that money. How? The country is now swallowed in debt. If you look at, we have heard the Minister of Local Government, we have heard the Minister of Local Government, Minister of Infrastructure, talking about roads which were being constructed during their time. What were they doing? They were using selective tenders. A selective tender has rules in which you can use it. There's a certain limit for which you can use a selective tender. But then they continued using selective tender. Why were they doing that? Corruption.
Order. As the time is 1840 hours, I interrupt the proceedings and debate stands and adjourned. Day for resumption of debate.
Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Debate resumes tomorrow. The House is now adjourned.
Until tomorrow at 14:30. But let's quickly look at what has been considered on the floor of the House before we leave.
Yes, and so when business resumed at 14:30 hours, Mr. Speaker permitted Her Honor the Vice President to render a ministerial statement on the flood situation in the country. And so this was following a matter of urgent public importance raised by Honorable Tasira Lungu, Member of Parliament for Chawama constituency.
And Her Honor in her speech did say that as predicted in the 2022-2023 National Contingence Plan, the country started experiencing floods at the beginning of January 2023 following an increase in the frequency and intensity of the rains. Flash and riverine floods have since affected at least 41 districts across the country, where the most severe impact experienced in southern and central provinces and some parts of Lusaka, eastern and western provinces.
She added that floods have occasioned an immense trail of devastation, damaging critical infrastructure such as roads and crossing points, submerging dwelling houses, with some houses collapsing, while also submerging crop fields, disruption of livelihood, and also damage to property, and among others.
She proceeded by saying that as at 2nd March 2023, about 373,581 people, representing 62,224 households, have been affected by floods. In addition, 1,509,222 livestock have been affected. In southern province alone, 2,881 cattle have died from tick-borne diseases due to flooded deep tanks, and at least 55 from drowning due to rising water levels. Over 278,863 acres of crop field have been adversely affected by the ongoing flooding.
Her Honor, the Vice President did say that in peri-urban and urban settings, the heavy rainfall hazard translates into a disaster because of man-made developmental and behavioral activities that raise the level of risks, vulnerabilities, and exposure to disasters.
And Her Honor did highlight some of the general reasons for flooding in most developed parts of the country. She did proceed by saying that lack of proper design and construction methods, which limits the channel capacity of water rains, lack of drainage features, usually refers to lack of drainage infrastructure and to inadequate ground slope to convey surface runoff, drain diversions, and all